All right, in the UK, a Christian doctor who was sacked after refusing to use female pronouns when discussing a transgender woman has lost his legal fight against his former employers. In an interview with RT, Dr. David Mackereth explained why he refused to back down in the dispute.
Because I'm a Christian, I would consider it to be utterly dishonest to use pronouns in that way and sinful, deeply affecting my Christian faith and my walk with God. And secondly, as a doctor, it's quite simply unscientific and unproven, and therefore, again, in good conscience, I can't do that. I've never refused to treat any patient of whatever background they come from. The question here is whether I can be forced to do something and to say something which goes deeply against my conscience. I didn't set out to offend anybody. I don't desire to offend anybody, but I desire not to be forced to do something that I cannot do.
RT's Shadia Edwards-Dashti has more on the story.
Well, you're probably familiar with pronouns such as he, she and them, and respecting them is especially important for the transgender community, gender non-conforming and binary people. However, failing to get it right could now cost you your job. At least that's the case for one doctor. He himself was sacked. He faced dismissal because he failed to use these pronouns due to his own personal religious beliefs. And in a controversial court statement, it read that his Christian values were in direct contradiction with the fundamental rights of others.
A lack of belief in transgenderism and conscientious objection to transgenderism, in our judgment, are incompatible with human dignity and conflict with the fundamental rights of others. Insofar as those beliefs form part of his wider faith also does not satisfy the requirement of being worthy of respect in a democratic society.
So what's the case? Well, Dr. David Mackereth is a Christian man who worked for the NHS for 26 years. Now, he was subsequently sacked after a conversation with his boss, who asked him, how would you respond if a 6-foot-tall man came into your office and asked to be called Mrs. or she? Well, Dr. Mackereth refused and said he would simply not be able to conform to those requests, and he was subsequently sacked from his position. Now, the Department for Work and Pensions argues that Dr. David Mackereth's views are in direct breach of the Equality Act of 2010. On top of all of that, the firm that hired the man is also being sued for religious beliefs. But the fact remains that the tribunal did rule, of course, that his beliefs could cause offence. And in fact, many people in the trans community and trans activists say that all of this has psychological ramifications, is tantamount to abuse, not to mention, of course, that medical healthcare professionals should be treating people and not judging people in their opinion. Well, anyway, Dr. David Mackereth is now saying he will appeal the decision.
Dr. Mackereth says the ruling against him sets a dangerous precedent.
I was taken off the shop floor and I say, interrogated, or the judges denied that, about what I believed by my manager. Are people going to be pulled off the shop floor in the National Health Service now and interrogated about their beliefs? There's a really difficult precedents that have been set from my case, and that's why we're really quite shocked at the outcome. 4 precedents here, very quickly. The first one is that you're not allowed not to believe the transgender movement's maxims. The second one is compelled speech. The third precedent is that belief that God made us male and female, and that therefore sex and pronouns are fixed, is not allowable. And the fourth is that core Christian beliefs, all Christianity, is not compatible with modern society or human dignity. These are very big precedents. Each one of them is a huge blow to freedom. And I've never refused to treat any patient of whatever background they come from.
All right, a human rights campaigner, Peter Tatchell, believes that views of Christians shouldn't offend transgenders. Andrea Williams, chief executive of the Christian Legal Center in Opposite, thinks that our world lacks Christianity.
Conflicted fundamentally with his faith and also with his belief as a doctor and how best to treat such a patient.
There are some passages in the Bible which are in conflict with basic human rights. I mean, St. Paul in the New Testament seemed to endorse slavery. In the Old Testament, it justifies the killing of gay and lesbian people. So, we'd have to grapple with this.
The reality for him is this, that the way in which really to help someone who is confused about their gender is to help them to live in the biological gender in which they were born. That would certainly be his way, his belief of how to look after a person who is confused about their gender.
Trans people are not confused. They have a genuine, sincere, overwhelming belief that they are something other than they were assigned at birth.
Forcing society, forcing medics, forcing teachers, forcing doctors, forcing the general public at large, forcing us all to say something that is not true, is not kind.
That is not delusional, it's not being dishonest, it's not avoiding the truth. It is a reality that gender is a spectrum. I think it's very offensive for Andrea to say that, and I'm sure she would not want to add to the suffering and indeed perceived non-recognition or denial that trans people so often face. We now live in a more open, liberal, tolerant society where people no longer have the fear they have to hide away and suppress their desires.
We live in a more confused and hurting and broken society.
Well,
a confused and hurting society.
Finish,
a society where children. Well, I think that we're in a debate.
Andrea,
we're in a debate here.
Can you please let me speak? They are who they are. And to call them confused is deeply and profoundly insulting.
The reality was he realised that the very statement of saying that you're made male and female was a statement that caused offence. The reality is that for saying that, you get left out in the cold. The reality is that our children are no longer being taught that they are boys and girls. They're no longer being taught they're being taught extraordinary things where the sexualization of our children in culture is absolutely huge, and where that's all leading is to a great confusion and a great chaos.